In our world, the fate of the Second World War was decided in 5 minutes, between 10:20 and 10:25 a.m. on June 4th, 1942. American dive bombers dropped out of the clouds and turned the Imperial Japanese Navy's finest carriers into burning wrecks. It was a miracle, a mix of luck, timing, and impossible bravery. But miracles are rare, and in war, luck eventually runs out. What if the American scout planes had missed? What if the Japanese codes were never fully broken? What if, on that morning in June, the miracle at Midway became the massacre at Midway? In this timeline, the rising sun does not set. The U.S. Navy is broken. Hawaii is under siege. And the atomic bomb is not dropped on Hiroshima, but on a target far closer to the new front line. This is the story of a Pacific Ocean that turned Japanese. To understand how the U.S. loses, we must break the one advantage that gave them hope: intelligence. In reality, Commander Joseph Rochefort cracked the Japanese naval code. His team knew the target was Midway. But here, the Japanese changed their cipher book 2 weeks early. The Americans go blind. Admiral Nimitz knows an attack is coming, but he doesn't know where, and he doesn't know when. Admiral Yamamoto pushes the full weight of the First Air Fleet toward Midway for heavy carriers. Kaga! Soryu! And hear you! In our history, the U.S. set a trap. In this timeline, the Americans walk into one. Fearing a direct strike on Oahu, Nimitz positions his carriers, the Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, to far east. Caution becomes a death sentence. June 4th, early morning. Japanese bombers tear Midway Island apart. Oil tanks burn. The runways are cratered. But unlike reality, no U.S. carriers are close enough to strike back. When they finally arrive, they are late, scattered, and uncoordinated. The tragedy of Midway was always the sacrifice of the torpedo squadrons. They flew low and slow, taking the brunt of Japanese fighter fire so the dive bombers could strike. In this timeline, their sacrifice is meaningless. Torpedo Squadron 8 charges the Japanese fleet and is wiped out to the last man. The dive bomber Z-1s meant to deliver the killing blow get lost in cloud cover, burn fuel searching, and vanish into the vast Pacific. Many ditch into the sea. Dozens of America's best pilots never return. On the Japanese carriers, the chaotic rearming process finishes uninterrupted. Fully fueled attack planes crowd the decks. At 11 a.m., a scout plane spots the USS Yorktown. Hundreds of Japanese aircraft lift off. It is not a contest. It is an execution. Outnumbered 3-1, the American fighters are... The Yorktown takes 5 torpedo hits and capsizes within minutes. The Enterprise is next. Explosions rip through her hangar decks. She turns into a floating furnace. The Hornet flees, but a second Japanese wave catches her. By sunset, all 3 American carriers are gone. Japan loses none. 3,000 American sailors vanish beneath the waves. The Pacific Wall collapses. The news hits Washington like a physical blow. Roosevelt is stunned. With the carrier fleet destroyed, the U.S. now has 0 power projection in the Pacific. Panic spreads across the West Coast. Rumors of Japanese invasion sweep California. Stock markets crash. But the biggest victim of Midway's fall is not America, it is Britain and the Soviet Union. Until now. Allied strategy was Germany first. Hold Japan back, defeat Hitler. But with the Pacific open, public pressure forces Roosevelt to redirect everything westward. Divisions preparing for Europe are recalled. Convoys meant for the Soviet Union are diverted. Churchill writes that Britain is now alone. Without American convoys, German U-boats gain the upper hand in the Atlantic. The invasion of North Africa is cancelled. The Second Front is delayed indefinitely. Japan understands it cannot invade America. Yamamoto knows the U.S. mainland is beyond his reach. But Australia is not. His strategy is simple. Isolate them until they collapse. With no U.S. carriers left to interfere, Japan launches Operation FSTA, invasion of Fiji, Samoa, and New Caledonia. These islands are the lifeline between America and Australia. One by one, they fall. By late 1942, Australia has cut off no fuel, no ammunition, no American reinforcements. The Japanese Navy blockades the continent. Prime Minister John Curtin prepares to abandon the entire northern half of the island nation. The Pacific transforms into a Japanese lake. Hawaii becomes a fortress under constant siege. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy retreats to the California coast to rebuild, but there is one factor that no tactical defeat can erase: American industry. In 1942, U.S. GDP exceeded that of all other major powers combined. Yamamoto once said he could run wild for 6 months. He gets 18. But the sleeping giant wakes angrier, not weaker. By mid-1943, new Essex-class carriers begin to roll off the docks. These are monstrous war machines, unlike anything Japan can match. But the geography has shifted. The U.S. must start from Pearl Harbor and push west, fighting through a massive Japanese defensive perimeter. The war turns brutal. With no early victories like Guadalcanal, American forces must battle across open ocean and heavily fortified islands. Submarine warfare becomes the U.S.'s sharpest weapon. After fixing their torpedo failures, American subs begin strangling Japan's merchant fleet. Japan holds vast territory, but cannot feed it. Their empire starves from within. By 1945, the U.S. claws its way back to the Marianas, but at horrific, cost double the casualties of our timeline. With Europe still locked in a stalemate, the public is exhausted and demands an end. The Manhattan Project provides one. But with no secure bases close to Japan, there is no safe way to deliver an atomic bomb onto a city. The front has shifted too far east. Instead, the target becomes something else entirely: the combined fleet. A modified B-29 embarks on a one-way mission to Truk Lagoon, Japan's greatest naval stronghold. On August 6, 1945, the world's first atomic bomb detonates above the anchored fleet. The Yamato, the Musashi, and the victors of Midway vanish in a white flash. The water boils. Thousands die instantly. The Imperial Navy's spirit is crushed. Japan surrenders shortly after, not from invasion, but from starvation and nuclear devastation. But the consequences of losing Midway echo across decades. With the U.S. focused entirely on the Pacific, the Soviet Union overruns all of Germany and pushes deep into France before stopping. The Iron Curtain falls not at Berlin, but along the Rhine. The Cold War begins earlier, colder and far more dangerous. America still wins the war, but the world they inherit is darker. The victory at Midway in our timeline bought the world freedom. Its loss would have bought a world of endless conflict. History is written by the victors, but history is decided by the survivors. Thanks for watching!